Shaun Woodward is a man trying to work himself out of a job. Once policing and justice is devolved, the role of Secretary of State for Northern Ireland may itself disappear. But what can be achieved in the midst of a scandal that is engulfing the political class here and at Westminster? If the government doesn't get a grip, could progress on all sorts of issues be in jeopardy? The Secretary of State is here. You're very welcome.
Good morning.
Clawing greed, a culture of abuse. Parliament's moral authority has slumped to its lowest ebb in living memory. Not my words, those of Lord Kerry, the former Archbishop of Canterbury. It's pretty bad when someone like him thinks that.
I think it's terrible. I think the public look at us right now. They think we've all got our noses in the trough. Our profession looks shameful. It's embarrassing. And right now, if I try and make almost any defence of our collective position or my position, it looks terrible. But, you know, I've just had a cup of tea in the green room here getting ready for this programme, and there were biscuits next to the makeup tray. Now, the BBC is funded by the taxpayer. Those biscuits were actually paid for by a taxpayer. I have in my office claimed for biscuits for my constituents. So my constituents shouldn't have biscuits, but someone coming on this programme should. I mean, I think the point is, what we've got to look at here is not just MPs' expenses, and my goodness we have. And I am really embarrassed by all of this for all of us in the House of Commons. But we've got to look at how taxpayers' money is spent generally. So that means I think you should have the right to look at every single one of my receipts, and you can have them as soon as you want. But secondly, any organisation, the BBC, funded by the taxpayer, why shouldn't also the taxpayer say, Jim, let's have your receipts tomorrow, the programme editor's receipts, because I think actually they've rightly said they want transparency. So I think MPs should put their hands up, admit their mistakes where they've made them, but I also think other public organisations funded by the public, they also have a right to open up the books. That would be good for our democracy.
But isn't part of the problem here, and you mentioned the biscuits here, and people kind of snicker when they see Shaun Woodward claiming for family circle biscuits, and you make the point fairly about the BBC providing them in their offices too. But in amongst all of those sort of minor trivia, there are some real issues that need to be addressed. You know, could you, for instance, wholeheartedly defend the position of all the members of the Cabinet in relation to expenses?
Well, I can't answer for individuals in the Cabinet. I can answer for myself. One of the things I worry about here is that there is a very big argument around who do we want to be a Member of Parliament. You see, are we actually really saying that if, for example, somebody has made money outside of the House of Commons before they come in, they should earn no salary at all, they should claim no expenses, in which case, should we now move to a system of means testing? Maybe we should, but we should think about that. Should we say, for example, that if a woman comes into the House of Commons, and let's say that she's married to a very wealthy man, he's made a huge amount of money, that she, because she's married to somebody, shouldn't claim any salary, shouldn't claim any expenses? In other words, I think we spent 150 years fighting for saying that women should not be judged through the eyes of a man. Ironically, I'm a man, I'm judged because I'm married to somebody called Sainsbury, that actually I shouldn't claim an allowance in London, to live in London, for that reason. I'm not making special pleading here, because I will actually say that whatever the public feels is right, I will abide by, because I find it this morning really embarrassing, and I just want to say I'm sorry.
Okay.
Because I think our profession is not made up of crooks. I think it is people who genuinely want to bring a peace process to Northern Ireland, who genuinely want to make life better for people. But right now, my family, my children, look at their father seemingly thinking that it's important to claim for biscuits and a yoghurt and that he's committed a terrible crime. And I'm really embarrassed.
But it's clear, in reality, you don't have anything to say sorry for. But what about a Cabinet colleague like Hazel Blears, for instance, who's saying to the taxman when she sells a property in London that it's her primary residence, when in fact she's been claiming taxpayers' money on that residence from the House of Commons on the basis that it's not her primary residence?
Well, I think, to be fair to Hazel, she's made it very clear about her own position, and I think she should answer for herself here. I think Hazel is an honest person. What I do think here is that we have a system which is an unmitigated disaster. It's allowed people to do things which, when you hold back and look at it in the round, look terrible. I don't think these people are crooks. I don't think they're bad people, whether they're Labour, whether they're Tory, whether they're DUP, Sinn Féin. These are good people trying, by and large, to do a good job. But the system we've got is rotten, and the system's got to go. And to be fair to the Prime
How
Minister...
can you blame the system when people don't have to milk the system, but it's clear that many of them
Jim,
have been?
I can't do anything about the claims that other people have put in the past. I've tried to do my
But there's personal responsibility involved here.
But to
not
be
just
fair
the
to the
system.
Prime Minister, what he said last week was, this system is awful. It's got to go now. He, to be fair, wanted the whole system of allowances for accommodation to have been changed and members of Parliament to vote on it last week. Unfortunately, the other party leaders wouldn't agree to do that. Now, Sir Christopher Kelly's got to sort it out. For my money, I'd like it sorted out tomorrow because, as I say, I think our position is ghastly.
Should you publish everything now and get it over and done with? Why wait till July?
Well, personally, I'd be very happy to get my receipts out immediately because it's perfectly clear the Daily Telegraph have already got all my receipts, which is why they published the fact that in my constituency office we apparently bought a yoghurt for a kid who was hungry in the office. I'm happy for you to have all mine. You can have them, it's fine. There may be a problem from some other people, and I think, to be fair here, there is a reason perhaps for just making sure we do check these well, because I think some of the receipts, for example, that were published about some MPs in which it's alleged they were claiming for women's clothing or whatever, actually the receipt may have included that, but it didn't actually amount to the fact that every single item on that receipt was being claimed for.
Okay,
so I think we have to allow people here, you know, a bit of space for some justice, because the accusations, frankly, are so awful for them, that they're crooks, that they're dishonest. Okay. Let them clear their names. So for me personally, you can have mine.
OK. On the Sinn Féin issue, obviously they're in the headlines today about their alliance costs in London, their accommodation. It seemed that the government wanted Sir Christopher Kelly's committee to make Northern Ireland a special exemption. Are you wanting to turn a blind eye to Sinn Féin milking expenses at Westminster?
Absolutely clear about this. What the Prime Minister wanted Sir Christopher Kelly to do was to continue with his work and find a right long-term solution. What the Prime Minister wanted to do was bring in immediate changes to clean up this system because it's so awful. And
should Northern Ireland be treated the same as everywhere else?
Sinn Féin, to be fair to them, actually said to me, we want to be treated the same as everybody else. But I'm not Sinn Féin spokesman. You won't be surprised to hear that. What actually I think is really important here, though, is that this reform of the system addresses all the anomalies. So we should look at double jobbing, for example. There will be MLAs here in Northern Ireland who will be claiming allowances and salaries and all kinds of expenses. They may well be being claimed in Westminster as well. I think the whole system has got to be looked at, because what's at stake here, to be really honest about this, isn't my future or Martin McGuinness's future or Hazel Blear's future or Gordon Brown's future. Really what's at stake here is what kind of parliament we want, what kind of Stormont we want, what kind of people we want to go into politics. And I'm really worried about one thing if we're not careful. We'll produce a system in which only the rich could afford to go into politics, and we'll produce a system which will discourage really good, hard-working people who've come from no background with money. They're just good people, and they may look at the system and think, I don't want to go into that. And that, in the end, will be the real loss for all of us.
OK.